And I learned what to do with those feelings. I learned how to sit with them and how to not have to numb them out or try to cover them up or escape them. And so then I could see myself, and I could see myself more clearly, who I was and where I was and what I was doing to myself and to others around me.
Food Addiction is a podcast which explores the disease of food addiction and presents the solution. We interview professionals and counselors who specialize in the disease of food addiction, and we interview individuals who have successfully recovered from food addiction and discuss how they did it. Esther Helga Goodmans-Dotier was motivated to change careers after she recovered from food addiction by opening a food addiction treatment center and the InFact School, the world's first and only sugar and food addiction counseling training, which offers a recognized certification. Check out the website for more information on obtaining this certification, as well as proven recovery programs at infactschool.com. Listen to these episodes as we discuss the problem and the solution around food addiction. I'm Susan Branscombe. I am a recovered food addict and the host of this podcast, which is sponsored and owned by the InFact School. Today, our guest is Lisa Kay. She is a recovered food addict. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Susan.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm looking forward to hosting you and getting into your story. I've read your blog entries and some of your writings, and I've seen your before and after photos, and what an incredible transformation and journey. And I can tell you see it the same way. Recovery from food addiction.
Yeah, it's a miracle, really, to see the difference and what it was like before and what it is like now. Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to share your story, sort of what it was like with food and food addiction, and then what your life was like during that time when you were in the food, as we say, and talk about food addiction recovery. And then we'll talk about what your life is like now. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm also going to mention some quotes. I'll read some quotes from your writing, which are really powerful, and let you address them and talk about them. How's that?
Sounds great.
Okay, good. Well, let's start with your history, kind of your childhood. I've seen the photos before you got into recovery, as I said, and the after photos, and people probably say to you what they say to me, that can't possibly be you. It doesn't look like the same person, right? You probably get that. So, yeah. Well, the dates I have, and I'll turn it over to you, are January 1st, 2021 was a pivotal date. It was New Year's Day. And the next day, you made some decisions, and 2.5 years later, you, at that time, January 1st, 2021, you weighed 335 pounds. You have to date released 150 pounds, and you did it through recovery. So talk about your history, your weight, your food use. Let's get started there.
Yeah, sure. So I think I was a food addict from day one. My mom would tell me stories about how she would put rice cereal in my formula to keep me full. Otherwise, I would cry. And so there started the trifecta, right? Sugar, fat, and starch.
Yes.
And it didn't end there. It just kept going. And so through all my childhood, I've been overweight. And I have memories of sitting in front of the refrigerator eating what was supposed to be healthy apricot sorbet, right? It was half apricot puree from the tree out back and half sugar. And I would sit on the floor in the kitchen, taking out sheets of it out of the freezer and just eating constantly.
As a child?
As a child, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you started early. When did you identify as a food addict, right?
Oh, yes.
Recovered.
Food addict. I'm also a volume addict.
Yes.
Volume for me. I loved the feeling of feeling full and stuffed, not just healthy full.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little later, because I share that with you. You are a food addict in recovery, recovered, sometimes we say, in the spirit of 12-step literature. When did you started early. did you realize then, or as you realize now that you looked back, you weren't eating like other kids or other at that time?
Yeah, I probably, as a teenager, I started realizing I wasn't eating like other kids. I would start hiding what I was eating.
Hmm.
I would, in front of people, eat a healthy amount, and then I would go home and binge
Yeah.
on anything and everything. We'd go out to eat, and I'd often order extra meals to take home and say it was for my family. Well, it was
Yeah.
not for my family; it was for
Right.
me. Um, so it was, yeah, teenage years where I started realizing, okay, I'm not eating in a normal
Hmm.
way with as a teenage girl.
Yeah. I think that was a critical time for me too. At the age of 14, I was gone through puberty. My body was starting to hold on to fat, wasn't as active, and there were boys and there were girlfriends and everything was changing. And I just, I was carrying extra weight and I was embarrassed about it. And, those are traumatic times, so you talk about hiding. A lot of us secretly eat. It's kind of like our friend, and to feel better and to get away from emotions. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about the volume eating. I was a volume eater, and I used to feel really scared if I felt hungry or my stomach wasn't full, and I would feel safe if it was full. Do you share that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It was comforting. It was
Hmm.
soothing for me to feel full all the time.
Hmm.
And the slightest bit of not feeling full, I don't even, I wouldn't say hungry because I don't know that I've ever felt hungry until, I don't know that I feel hungry now even.
Yeah.
I don't know what that sensation looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd never allow myself to be hungry. It was
Right.
always, I had to fill myself with something. Didn't matter what it was as long as it was something.
Hmm. As you look back now, we'll talk about what your childhood was like. We talk about sort of an emptiness, in feeling that emptiness or loneliness. There are many emotions that we eat around, just to fill something that you can't really identify. They call them often hungry ghosts. These are hungry ghosts. What is that that's causing us to go to the food and to feel some need to fill our stomachs? You relate to that?
Yeah, I was always alone. I was a loner. I would sit in the playground and read a book by myself. I had one teacher at one point took my book away and told me to go play. Well, I
Oh,
couldn't play. All the kids were on the playground, on the monkey bars and things like that. I couldn't do any of that. I was too big.
right.
So I just sat in the corner by myself without my book. So felt really isolated a lot growing up. Had very few friends, if any. Was bullied by kids in school all the way through high school. Um,
Kids can be cruel at
so,
that age, and
mhm.
bullying goes on now, but it would go on back then, and teachers didn't always intervene. And tell me, do you have a story or do you have some incident where you can say, this is what happened when I was a kid and I was overweight and shamed?
Yeah, I love to swim. It was the one piece of exercise sport I could do was swimming, um, and I swam slow, but I loved it. And I was always called Orca by the other
Mhm.
kids in the pool, and no one would come play with me. We'd play, Marco Polo or something like that, and I wasn't allowed to play. Like people would just stay away. And just yeah, Orca was how I was referred to
Which
in the
is a
community
name
pool.
of a
It's
whale,
a
right? Is it
whale,
a
yeah, a
whale?
killer
Yeah,
whale.
killer whale. Yeah, yeah. It's cruel. I experienced some of that in high school. I was carrying maybe 10 or 15 pounds, but I got that. You know, and it sounds like you were carrying more extra weight, and yeah, kids can be cruel. So talk about what your childhood was like growing up. What kind of childhood did you have? In your writing, I noticed you mentioned some trauma. What what might have been unique or traumatic about your childhood?
Yeah, I think the bullying from other kids was a big piece of that. Um, I think also in my family, my father was very angry for most of my life until I became an older teenager, and so would yell. I would be hit um, frequently, and you never knew. Some days he'd come home and he would be the most caring dad and the most affectionate of my parents, and the other days he would come home and I was the subject of his anger.
Right. Was
And
he an
so,
alcoholic?
no, he was not. But he was a smoker and addicted to cigarettes and
Cigarettes.
nicotine. But I don't know where. I mean, I know my grandfather was very angry as well. So I know where it came from, but I don't know exactly what was happening in his life at the time. I
Hmm.
know he was trying to provide for a family, and that was hard for him to do. So, and my mom, I think, was depressed and not treated, and
Yeah.
so her emotional availability was not always present either. So there was times where I felt neglected and alone, and felt like I had to take care of her in many instances.
Not
Um,
emotionally supported as a child, which we need to be to have a good, healthy childhood is to be supported emotionally and to for our parents to let us know they love us and that they are there to meet our needs, physical and emotional needs. But I had the same kind of childhood. My dad was an alcoholic. He was often angry, would rage, and my mother was not emotionally available. So very similar. And what we learn early is that we can feel better with food. I did.
yeah, food was my comfort, my friend,
Yeah,
right?
it was. And it worked.
And
It
it
worked.
worked.
And I know what it's like to have a father that comes home and you're not quite sure. You're kind of watching, you're observing, okay, what kind of mood is he in? Is he going to be abusive or not? Right.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, it was always touchy when he walked in the door. And I would peer out of my room and get a gauge for what things were like, and often stay in my room by myself.
Yeah.
You know,
What it's caused with me as I've become an adult is that I have this almost sixth sense about an energy in a room and with people. I don't know if you find that you grew up with it, you look for it, and then you bring it out into the world, and you read body language, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You can walk into a room and I can tell where the tension is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can look at two people that are talking and not hear what they're saying, and probably guess what the conversation's about just by watching. And that's what you learn when you grow up like that. So, yeah, you talk about in your writing significant family stressors, and that's I think that's what you're talking about your mother and father and the childhood you grew up in, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I grew up in a large extended family, um, and even there, I was ostracized by some of my aunts who wanted me to lose weight. They would, as a teenager, "I'll buy you a new outfit if you lose weight." Well, that's the last thing I wanted was to go clothes shopping.
Right,
Forget it, you know.
right.
Um, and I'd have to wear a lot of boys' clothes, the husky clothes from the boys
Husky,
section.
yeah.
Yeah, because my mom couldn't find clothes for me that were feminine looking. She made a lot of my dresses that I would
Hmm.
have to wear for church on Sunday or things
Yeah.
like that. And again, that was completely stood out. My first communion dress my mom made, and did not look like any of the other girls in the church that day. And that was very clear that the large girl did not fit in.
Yeah, yeah. And that causes us to isolate and feel like an outsider and not make friends. And it sounds like that really characterized your life, even as an adult. And I don't know about you, I can still find myself feeling like an outsider at certain times. We have 12-step recovery. We have other people that have recovered like us. And so I never really feel like an outsider in those settings.
Yeah, for me, I don't feel like an outsider anymore.
Okay.
I have found my tribe, my people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've reconnected with some of my extended family who I just adore and who adore me, and so I feel loved and connected there. I've also found friends in
Yeah.
recovery.
Hmm.
that really have my back
Yeah.
at all times of the day and night, right? It
Yeah.
does not matter.
Right. Yeah. We're going to
So,
talk about that a little later. I'm going to read one of your quotes, which is really, really powerful, that talks about the hopelessness and desperation and powerlessness, I would say. So I'll read this and let you talk about it. And it was a journal entry. It said, quote, I was recently reading through my past journals and I want to read from my journal, January 1st, 2021, the day before my consultation with Shift. I can barely look at myself in the mirror. It disgusts me. I see myself as fat and ugly. Food has become everything to me. I binge 6+ times a day on fast food, chocolate, pasta, cheese, sauces. I eat food off of other people's plates, out of the trash. I see many negative consequences of my eating habits, mainly gaining weight, disgust at myself, difficulty with sex, looking and feeling like a pig at a buffet, numerous body pains, breathing difficulties. I can't walk more than a few feet, and I need to take several breaks, walking up one flight of stairs in the house. I can't put on my own shoes and my clothes don't fit. Food makes me loathe myself. Food is killing me. My body and soul are both dying very quickly. Not even my program is working. So is there any hope at all? I don't think so. I'm just going to die. That's what my new year will be, my death. And that was the day before you consulted with the Shift folks, recovery. We'll talk about that. But talk about where you were January 1st, 2021 and what was going on.
yeah, I had tried everything up until that point to lose weight. That was my goal. I just want to lose weight, right? And I've tried various pay and weigh programs. I tried various diets that were out there, bizarre things,
Yes.
like there was one I remember, Eat Right for Your Type, where you did your blood type
Oh
and you
yeah.
figured out what
Yeah.
foods you could eat or not eat. I mean, that was a
Yes.
disaster. I think I gained 20 pounds in a month on that one. Um, but it was horrible, and life was horrible. I was miserable, absolutely miserable, and not really wanting to live anymore.
Yeah.
Really feeling like there's nothing I could do here that's going to make a difference. Nothing's going
Yeah.
to help me. I tried. I went to a food treatment program a couple years earlier, about 3 years earlier, and I did great there for the week and for a few months afterwards. But there was no aftercare, right? It
Yeah.
was just go out to a 12-step group, and I did that. I was in 12 steps, and I gained weight about 100 pounds being in 12-step
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Um, and so I knew I needed something more, but didn't know what that could possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you got the click, I would call it, when you talked to Shift and you heard what might be possible, and it sounds like that was your bottom. If I could make that leap, that was a bottom where you thought you're gonna die from this because you have no real solution on how to get out of it, and that's where I got to the point where I don't want to live like this. I'm going to die. I'm slowly killing myself because of the 70 pounds, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, couldn't walk without getting out of breath. And so that was a bottom for me. So this sounds like really a bottom.
Yeah, it was a bottom. I've had been told by doctors before, you're killing yourself with food. And I would just
Yeah.
be like, yeah, whatever, okay, sure. I can't stop. So too bad. It wasn't until I had a doctor who told me I was committing suicide. And the
Yeah.
suicide word just really hit me.
Yeah.
And that was 2 months before that January 1st day. And I got so angry, I stormed out of the guy's office. Because I was not committing suicide, right? And then that morning I sat there thinking, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to commit suicide. But if God took me tonight, that would be just fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that scared me.
Yeah.
Right? And so then the next morning I was on Facebook looking at family pictures from Christmas.
Yeah.
And up pops the Shift Recovery by Acorn advertisement on my feed, which again, I'm rarely on Facebook, and I don't search for food addiction treatment, and I don't search for weight loss programs or anything else on Facebook. And here it pops up, and I'm like, huh, So I talked to my husband and I asked him if he'd be with me. We did a consult with Shift and the next day. And I really, that for me, that was intervention by God.
Hmm.
I could not have found Shift if I wanted to try to find them.
Right.
God just put it in my place.
Yeah.
And I don't even think I was in the space to look for a food addiction treatment program at that point. Like I just was totally discouraged and in despair and
Right.
giving up.
Yeah, I mean, it's so demoralizing to be at a body weight you don't want to be, to eat and not be able to stop over and over and over again. And I dieted for 43 years, and I was really good at losing weight, and then I gained it back. Diets don't work long term for food addicts. We know that. But it is demoralizing, knowing what you look like when you go into a room of people and what people may be talking about you. And it's embarrassing to continue to buy bigger sizes of clothing, the whole thing. It's like, you can tell me, doctor, that I'm committing suicide, but I'm telling you, I can't stop doing this. Right.
Right. I couldn't stop. I broke a futon in my in-laws' house.
Oh,
Just sitting down and um I would go into a room and figure out what chair I could sit in, and oftentimes I would just stand because I couldn't find a
hmm,
place that I could sit.
yeah.
It was miserable. I could not stop eating. I mean,
Yeah.
multiple times a day, stopping for fast food after having a meal at home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and eating just the quantities of food I would eat. I would eat a pound of pasta by myself,
Yeah.
and that was a snack. That was afternoon snack. That
Right.
was not a meal.
Yeah.
um,
And we do it a lot of times. Fast food places make it easy for us to eat in secret. We can hide the wrappers later, but I used to go to McDonald's and Wendy's and all these places to get my fix when I was feeling something. And you talk about the emotions before we get into your recovery here. You say, I was compelled to eat and eat and eat at any chance I had. I was bound to a life of binging to the point of sickness. I was numbing out my emotions with more and more food. I was not free. And then you also say, any emotion that came up was instantly met with food to cope and soothe my heart and body. Food and eating became my affair partner. And I changed a word here, taking priority over all other activities, including work, marriage, family, and relationships. So, talk about food and dealing with emotions.
Yeah, I did not like to feel any emotion. Happy emotion, sad emotion, pleasant, unpleasant, it did not matter. If there was an emotion in my body, I would eat to numb that emotion. Um, and I would eat in quantities. It would take a lot, and I would have to eat more and more and more as time went by
Yeah,
in order to get that same
same
numb
effect. Yeah.
feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's where
And it really
that's
did.
really late stage food addict stuff. And then um, withdrawal is another thing. I know when you got into recovery, you probably had withdrawal from sugar and the way you were eating, right?
Oh yes, yeah. For I had about 3 weeks was just, gosh, so challenging, and
Yeah,
I needed just so much support, and I got it.
you got it. Yeah.
This last time with Shift, I got the support from Shift, from other fellows, from my family. I mean, I think
Hmm.
my husband and my daughter were at a place where we'll do anything to help you at this
Help you.
point, and
Yeah,
they
they
had
worry
to.
about us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had to get rid of every food that was off my food plan out of my house. Like no one could have anything in the house. Otherwise, I would find it.
You would find it, and we go looking
Um,
for it too.
oh my gosh, yes. And my family was on board with that. They ate what
Yeah.
I ate for 3 months before I was able to let them eat
Yeah.
anything in front of me that I was not eating.
Right. But it's
Um,
healthy eating. I mean, for a
yeah,
while, you were like me. I think you saw other people in recovery, and I think you said to yourself you weren't that bad, despite the negative consequences. I mean, your doctor was urging, your family was worried about you. You weighed 335 pounds, and despite the negative consequences, we aren't able to control our food intake or our weight. So, um, did you think that controlling your food intake and your weight was your fault for a while?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. All
for
growing
years,
up,
right?
and all the way for years, and even into adulthood, it was I just don't have enough willpower. I'm just not strong enough. I
Right.
don't. There's must be something wrong with me. Why can't I?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
physical addiction. Now we eat out of emotions, emotional eating, and I'm sure at Shift you talked about that, but it is a physical difference in us as addicts that we ingest these things, and then it sets up this obsession about wanting more, and then latent stage you start needing more, and then you get bigger and bigger. I mean, it's vicious. Yeah.
It is. It is
So
vicious.
let's
Yeah.
talk. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah. I couldn't stop. There was just no way. I
Yeah.
absolutely needed to have that food, or I would die. And
Yeah.
then it got to a point where when I had the food, I was going to die. You
Yeah.
know.
It's
So.
insanity. It really is
Mhm.
insane. But fortunately, there
Absolutely.
is recovery. I'm in recovery, have been for 6.5 years. And, um, January 1st, 2021, something happened to make you realize that the next day, January 2nd, when you had the consultation with Shift, something was different. And I think it sounds like a bottom, and you were desperate. We hosted Amanda Leith, who is the owner of Shift Recovery by Acorn. It's very special to recovery. The website is foodaddiction.com, which is a great name that Phil and Mary got a hold of when they owned it. You attended the intensive session with Shift, and talk about Shift and the recovery and how it worked for you after struggling for so many years.
Yeah, that first consult with Amanda on January 2nd, that was my beginning of my abstinence, was that day after that consult. My husband and I both met with her at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, I remember that very, very distinctly. That was the first time I had any sense of hope that something could be different. She identified with me in such a way that I was like, wow, if you can do this,
Yeah.
maybe I could do this.
Yeah.
Um, and so that began the journey for me. I had an accountability partner multiple times a week. I did individual food coaching with
Hmm.
Shift several times a week until I got to my intensive. And so my intensive was in March, um, and it
Of
was during COVID
2021.
of 2021. Yeah,
Hmm.
March of 2021, first week. It was during COVID, so it had to be virtual. And so
Yes.
I was told to block my calendar for 10, 12 hours a day, which I did. We did everything together on Zoom,
Yeah.
including our morning walks, and it was intense. It was an intensive,
Yeah. That's why they call
for
it
sure.
intensive. It is intense. Yeah.
Exactly. But it was life changing for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely life changing for me. I went into it abstinent, and learned so much about the disease, and about myself, and
When you
about the
say
food and what
abstinent,
the good is.
what do you mean?
Oh, meaning that I don't eat. I wasn't eating any foods that I binged on. So
Yeah.
foods that I would crave or that I couldn't stop eating once I started.
Hmm.
Couldn't start from stopping, right? Or stop
Yeah.
from whatever that is, right? I couldn't stop eating.
Yeah.
And once I ate them, I couldn't stop them. So I didn't eat any of those, and that's abstinence for me. Um, and this was the most strict abstinence I've had, was with the Shift food plan and program. And at the beginning, I felt like, oh gosh, this is going to be restrictive. And within weeks, I was like, oh my gosh, this is freedom.
Yes.
Absolute freedom. I don't have to think anymore about what I'm eating. I'm not
Right.
obsessing about it every day,
Right.
all day long.
You took sugar out,
So
I assume. Did you take flour out?
I took all sugars, all sweeteners out. So no
All
artificial
sweeteners,
sweetener,
no
no
sweeteners.
sugar, no sugar substitutes. I took out all flour. And for me, I had to take out all dairy. Cheese
Okay.
was a big one
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So all dairy went out.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I attended Shift in May of 2019. It was the first Shift intensive that Amanda was there as an owner of the company from Phil Wardell and Mary Fushi. Met her, and then I did the intensive kind of as a student, but I was in their leadership program for a short while. And so I attended and I saw what happened there. And this was in person before COVID, and it is intensive. It is intense, all the check-ins and things. And Amanda wasn't sure you could do it by Zoom when COVID hit. And she sees that it is possible, and it's just as powerful.
Yeah, it was very powerful for me. And I think even more so from the sense of I was so anxious about having to go somewhere and get there, and how am I going to get there, and how am I going to get home, and how, just the logistic, and then people. Oh my gosh, I have to be around people who are going to see my size and see, who I am. And the virtual gave me a little bit of comfort in my own home, but it still went to the depth, right? I still had to be on screen. I had to show my face. I had to be present. And it was very powerful. And I think for me too, the aftercare process has been what's been life-changing as well.
Yeah.
Like if I had just done the intensive and stopped, I don't think I'd be where I am today.
Yeah.
But
We
I've
need
continued
support
on.
after this big change. We
Absolutely.
can't it can't be like a diet. Like, okay, you do this, here's your food plan, go off, and good luck to you. We're going to talk about the aftercare, but talk about what happened there for you at the intensive in terms of what you realized, what you discovered about yourself.
Yeah, I discovered the components of the disease, right? That if I ingest the food, my brain, my body is going to make me want more of it, the addictive piece of it. I also learned about the mental twist, if you will, right? That is my thinking, right? How I think around food, the craving for food, not the physical craving, but the emotional craving for food. Um, and I learned that if I took all of that out, that I could feel my feelings and I could actually sit and tolerate them.
Yes.
And at the beginning, that was little bits of it. I could tolerate it for a few seconds even, and then it became minutes. And I learned what to do with those feelings. I learned how to sit with them and how to not have to numb them out or try to cover them up or escape them. And so then I could see myself, and I could see myself more clearly, who I was and where I was and
right,
what I was doing to myself and to others around me.
Right. Because it's not just our disease. It affects others. It affects your family and it affects our children, and they worry about us a lot. But yeah, once we put the food down and become abstinent from our volume eating and trigger foods and so forth, we have to start dealing with the emotions that are coming up that we used to use food to deal with. And so, for those of us who don't like to feel our feelings, who were taught, don't feel your feelings. I mean, we don't care about your feelings, and you learn to stuff it down as a child. Suddenly they're coming out. And when they do come out, I don't know if you feel this way too. At the time, it feels like they're all encompassing and they're going to last forever, right? Mm-hmm. And they're powerful emotions. But they don't. They go away. It's like a wave. Waves come and they go. Right? Was that your experience?
Yeah, it is. One of my fellows always says, this too shall pass. Whether it's a pleasant emotion or an unpleasant emotion, this too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Remember that. It's like, and it does. It does. I wasn't used to crying. I'm not a crier. But I actually have cried in this program,
Yeah.
And people have stayed with me in it. They don't try to say, oh, it's going to be all right. It's going to, they let me talk to them and continue to sob, over things.
Yes.
And I needed to do it.
Learning that I could cry. Yeah. Learning that I could cry was something that happened like the last day of the intensive. I broke down in tears. In my childhood, I was hit if I cried, and I was told, I'll give you something to cry about, or I'll, so I never cried. That was just not an option for me.
Right.
The last day, Phil Wardell got me, I didn't remember what he said, but he said something. Phil made me cry. No surprise there, right?
No.
My intensive was with Phil Wardell and Mary Fushi, and that was something.
Yeah. Wow. They're a powerful couple. And when I was there, he gave me a book that he thought it would be helpful to me about workaholism. So I haven't found time to read it because I I work so hard. So
Yeah.
anyway, Phil got my number. He's pretty intuitive, and so is Mary. Just a very powerful couple, and Amanda's wonderful too. And so, talk about the surrender aspect of this disease. We learn that we can't control anymore. That we have to give up, and for people that aren't used to giving up, or surrender sounds like giving up. It's not really giving up. It's giving in to what is going on. Would you say?
Yeah, for me, surrender is about getting out of myself and allowing God to intervene through people, right? Through God, direct relationship with God, but through the people that I surrender to. At that first consult with Amanda, if she had told me to stand on my head at 335 pounds, I would have tried. Probably broken my neck, but I would have tried because I was willing to do anything anybody else told me to do that worked. And I saw that it worked for her. And so I was willing to do it.
Yeah.
And so all the way through for the last 2.5 years, yeah, I've been given suggestions and told things to do and try. And sometimes I grumble at them. Sometimes I internally don't like them, but I do them anyway. And it's in doing them, I have found tremendous freedom. Wow,
Yeah.
just tremendous freedom.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And I think for what we do and what I understand you do in recovery, there is work. There is an action plan. There are things we have to do every day to stay recovered. And it's a lot. But you got to the same point I did, which is like, I don't have another door to get out of this. This is it. I'm going to kill myself with food, or I'm going to or I'm going to have a life, and I'm going to do something about this. And part of it is surrender. But then you surrender. You say, okay, I got this. I'm going to deal with this, and then you get to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and yet it's enjoyable work. It's challenging work.
Yes.
It's not always easy to see myself and to see the things that I do or don't do.
Yeah.
But it's also given me such a sense of freedom and joy in my life that it's worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would do this work. I do this work every day, hours of it a day.
Yeah.
In order to have the freedom for the whole day.
Yeah, me too. And talking to people that are also struggling with this is key. I've developed some deep friendships from this, and they tell me what I need to hear. I've heard it said that you cannot know yourself by yourself. You need to hear this stuff, and you need to be able to have them put the mirror in front of you and say, Susan, this is what I see going on, and I need to hear it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone just called me on something last night even, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's me. I'm doing it again," you know? And I was so grateful she did, and she was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "No, please, I need friends who are rigorously honest with me so that I can be rigorously honest with myself. Otherwise, I'm in the food. Like,
Yeah.
there's no other way, you
Yeah.
know?
Let's talk about the hope and what it's like now and the freedom, which I can share that experience too. There's a quote in your writing: my New Year's resolution this year, 2023, is to continue to share my experience, strength, and hope in any way I can. I want for others the same hope and recovery that I received. And you've released 150 pounds, and food is no longer a pull for you. You look different, and you're in recovery. So talk about where you are right now.
Yeah, right now I'm living happy, joyous, and free, and I can honestly say that. It just I'm in a place where life happens, and yet I'm still happy about it. I'm still joyful about it. I'm still free in it, right? I can't prevent life from happening, but I certainly can be different in life,
Mhm.
and I can approach it in a way that is not I don't isolate. I don't sit by myself anymore in the corner reading a book. I reach out to my fellows. I reach out to my family, um, and in a place where everything that happens, I believe, is from God and from my higher power, who puts it in my life as a learning opportunity, as an opportunity for growth, as an opportunity for just comfort and guidance. It's been incredible to be where I'm at today. I never in a million years thought I could be here.
Yeah. So you feel your emotions today when you have an emotion, whether it's sadness, anger, whatever it is. How do you deal with it today, where it would have been different before?
Yeah, today I allow myself to feel it. I feel into my body. What does it actually physically feel like? What is it? What is the emotion that goes on there? And then what do I do with it? I take it to my higher power. I take it to who I call God, and I ask God's guidance. Where do I go here? What's my next step? What's the next thing to do? And I often take it to others. I'll take it to my fellows in recovery and share it. I'll take it to my addictions coach and share it.
Hmm.
Um, some of those things we work on in the coaching. I still do aftercare work with Shift. So I have a process group that I do every week for a couple hours, and I have individual coaching, addiction coaching with Shift as well. And I have my own therapy that I do that
Hmm.
is very consistent with the type of work that I do with Shift, very emotionally focused type work. And so I bring it there, and we release the ties to the past in those emotions
Yeah.
so that I can actually live present in the
Yes.
moment.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Talk about the aftercare with Shift. It sounds like you have ongoing process groups. You have a coach. Let's talk about the aftercare there that's been important to your recovery.
Yeah, that's been instrumental in my recovery. I couldn't do this by myself. There's just no way.
Right.
And I need support, and I need a lot of support just because of how addicted I am. I mean, I'm a low bottom food addict,
Yeah.
truly, and that requires support. And that's been the difference for me, having people walk alongside me in life now, and continuing to do so. So I've been in process group for 2.5 years, continuously since the intensive, and the individual coaching as well since the intensive, since before the intensive even. And then I do the other things too. I do my outreach calls. I have 3 outreach calls a day at minimum, talking to other fellows. Um, I read in the I read 12-step literature. I sponsor sponsees, which keeps me in the literature and working the steps as well. So it's a lot of time, and yet I wouldn't do it any other way. It's so worth it to me.
Yeah.
So
Same
worth
here.
it.
I do everything that you do with the calls and the writing and the reading. And I know you're spiritual. You have a prayer and meditation practice. I do that. And talk about how your relationships have changed in recovery with your family, your husband. You have a daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that has changed. I did one of my 10th step. I had to make amends to my husband, and I wrote him a letter and identified my food as my affair partner. That I was cheating on him with food, which was true. Food became more important than him, and that was a really powerful moment for us.
Mhm.
And his ability to say, "Yeah, I know," and thank you for acknowledging it. That was a really powerful moment for us in our marriage. And he has been so supportive from that point forward. Just really supportive in whatever I need, to stay abstinent, to stay in recovery. Um, and So that has been changed. My daughter, yes, my daughter made a comment, maybe a year and a half ago or so, about the fact that I actually can listen to her now. She goes, "Mom, when you listen, you actually hear me." You know,
Yeah.
and I said, "Wow, thank you." She goes, "I've noticed a difference. Like, you're
Yeah.
just a different person." And and I'm not trying to, convince her to go eat with me in various places that she doesn't like to eat. I don't know how that happened, but she came out a normal eater and has remained one. And I would try to convince her to come with me to go get, frozen yogurt or McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever it was, and she'd be like, "I don't like that food, Mom." I'm like, "What's wrong with you?"
I know.
um,
Yeah.
but now, I make healthy food, and she's like, "Oh, can I come over for dinner?"
Yeah.
Um, so it's
That's
been a different
wonderful.
relationship.
How old is your daughter?
She's 22.
22. And is that your only child?
It is, yes.
Okay. Well, I saw you in your Mother of the Bride dress, June of this year, and you
Yeah.
looked beautiful. And it was a size that was much different than it would have been 2 years ago. So yeah, and you're beaming in this photo.
Mhm. Mhm.
Really
Yeah,
special.
exactly. That was a special day for us, and, yeah, she was so excited. She went with me to find the dress. She's like, "Mom, I wanna go with you to find your dress," and we went to try on clothes, and, we found she was the one who found the one dress I was wearing. It was a navy blue, long evening gown, and, I put it on, and it was like, "Wow." And it was a size I didn't think I could. I'm like, "I don't think I can fit in that size." She goes, "Well, let's just try it," you know?
Yeah.
And I did, and it fit beautifully, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow." And I felt good all day
Felt
long,
proud. Yeah.
I
Rather
just
than
felt
like, oh gosh,
proud,
do I look fat in this? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I wasn't worried about what people were thinking of me at the reception and the wedding. I wasn't worried about, whether I'd fit in the pew at church or the
Yeah.
chair at the reception center, or, it was just something. And she commented about it, that day. She was like, "Wow, Mom, you really are a different person, and I really love who you are."
Yeah.
So
Very special, very emotional. I get chills and I can tell I'm feeling the emotion. I can see the emotion in your face. Let me give you a couple more quotes here as we wrap up. I've got a couple of questions. You say in here, we talk about the freedom, just the freedom from the mind chatter around the food and our weight. And you say, my soul has been revived and I have been transformed into a woman that is larger than life with superpowers of happiness, joyfulness, and freedom. The best parts of my transformation are more than meets the eye. That's, I'm just kidding. I'm just full of chills. I experienced the same thing. So talk about that.
yeah, it's amazing. I've ran into, well, not ran into, but we invited one of our friends that had moved away about 3 years ago. So she saw me in my top weight and came back for the wedding, and walked right by me. Didn't
Didn't
even notice
recognize
who
you.
I
Yeah,
was. Didn't
I've gotten
recognize
that.
me.
Yeah.
And so I called her name, and she comes back. She's like, "Lisa." I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Wow, wow, wow."
Yeah.
And so the physical transformation is there for sure, but the internal transformation, I think, is the part that I'm most happy about. Right, the things that people can't see on the outside. I felt happy that day. I felt excited. I was completely focused on my daughter, not focused on what was going to be served afterwards, or where I could stop for fast food on the way between the church and the reception, or, I was just totally focused on her and her husband. And it was a lovely day. And I think the transformations in my relationships has been powerful. The transformation in my relationship with God has been really powerful as well.
Mm,
I was raised in a faith, and always knew God existed and had God in my life, but not in a personal way, not in a deep way, not where I could really just go and have a conversation with God. And today I can. I do what we call two-way prayer.
yeah, I do that.
So I ask God a question, and then I journal God's response. And I do that every morning, and as part of my prayer and meditation. And that is just so beautiful to me, to have a relationship with God where I can ask a question and get an answer. That's God's answer. That's not my own. Here's what I want, God, because that's the way it was before. Just give me what I want.
Right.
The
Yeah,
candy
pray for him
dispenser,
rather
God.
than rather than,
Yeah,
it's his will, and I share that, right? And it's funny
yeah,
what God comes back with, and
yeah, yeah,
like, really, God? And I'm
yeah,
writing it. It's my higher instinct. It's a higher power. It's God, whatever your beliefs are. But yeah, I know in
yeah,
meditation when I'm there and I'm quiet and I am not alone. I know that.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
alone.
I'm never alone. I have God with me all the time, and
Yeah.
I rely on that. I mean, times at work where I have to make a decision. All right, God, come in and help. Give me some wisdom here, because
Yeah.
I don't always know what to do and what decisions to make and how to
Hmm.
make them.
Yeah.
Um, and I never feel alone.
Yeah. I don't either. And it's powerful to me, and I need the quiet time. Well,
Mhm.
this has really been great, Lisa. It's been great getting to know you. I relate to a lot of what you've been through. You have 150 pounds released. I've got 70, and it's a new life. And I would not trade it. You're talking about standing on your head. I would do whatever to stay in recovery in this program and live this life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, last question. If there's someone out there listening to this episode who weighs 100 pounds more than he or she should, or 150 pounds more than their ideal healthy weight, what would you say to him or her?
Oh, that there's hope. There's always hope. Yes, please come into fellowship.
Yes.
And I would say for me, the food addiction treatment is absolutely necessary. And for those who are low bottom food addicts the way I am and may not even know it, I didn't know it when I came in to Shift. All I knew was that I couldn't stop eating, and I weighed a significantly high amount. Over 335 pounds, my top weight. And I had no hope. And what I would say today is there is hope. If I can do this, you can do this.
Yes. Yeah, I believe it. And I've done it. And you saw it in Amanda, So Shift Recovery by Acorn, the website is foodaddiction.com. So Lisa, thanks for joining me today. Your story and journey is really inspiring, and I think the listeners are going to love this.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was a delight.
This is the Food Addiction Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and learned more about this disease. We hope you will rate and write a review on this podcast and share it with others. If you or someone you know is suffering from the disease of food addiction, there is a solution. The various food addiction recovery programs are available and listed on the website, theinfactschool.com. Or if you would like to know more about how to get certified in treating food addiction, the school is accepting applications now for its next training beginning in September 2023. Go to theinfactschool.com. That's INFACT school.com to learn more.
Are you passionate about helping others overcome food addiction? Do you dream of making a real difference in people's lives? Look no further than the InFact School, the first and only program that offers an accredited international professional certification for food addiction professionals. With over 170 hours of engaging and informative online virtual teaching sessions, you'll delve deep into the world of food addiction and gain the knowledge and skills needed to make a lasting impact. Our experienced instructors, who are leading experts in the field, will guide you through the latest research and evidence-based practices. The InFact School goes beyond theory and equips you with the hands-on skills you need to support individuals on their journey to recovery. You'll gain invaluable experience working directly with clients under the supervision of our faculty. Upon completion of our program, you'll be a certified food addiction professional, ready to make a positive impact in the lives of those struggling with food addiction. Join the InFact School today and be a part of the solution. Together, let's conquer food addiction and build a healthier future for all. Visit our website at www.infactschool.com to learn more and enroll in our professional training program. The journey starts here at the InFact School.